that manifested and became flesh and dwelt amongst us, in us, through us, as us, and beyond us. So that the things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. What are the things that do appear? Well, I'm standing here looking at you, you're standing there, sitting there looking at me. These are the things that appear. But what the appear is a principle. Something that appears also disappears. Something that is made to flash is at some point or other gone. We can see that in the frame of time and space. So there's a second, I don't know where it's gone forever. It'll never come back. And so this flash that we have and that we see is of a transient nature, a kind of moment in a flux, like a river moving on, where not one drop is ever the same. You can step into a river, but the next foot that you put in is different water. It all goes through. This whole universe flows in this way, like a river. And so, these things which are seen and heard and touched and tasted, the whole familiar world that we have, they were not made of the things, not made of things which do appear. They're made from some substratum, and the final substratum that we have is this creative capacity, this word, this concept, this cosmic mind from which everything comes. And if we understand the categorization in the Samkhya system of so many categories, 24 categories and odd, we'll see there that it goes like this, that there is an absolute entity, pure being, pure consciousness. And how does it get into a state of a kind of dividedness? Well, it doesn't divide itself. That wouldn't make any sense. An absolute cannot divide itself. But through the medium of time and space and causality, through what we call upadhi, a limiting juncture, or what we could more easily call an adapter. If on the one side it's limiting, seems to be limiting, but on the other side it's manifesting. So this manifesting world of ours is done in stages, but things are not what they seem to be. And that is why the first step in any spiritual life really will be discernment. We're studying the Bhagavad Gita. There's a practical dimension to this. Of course, the whole Bhagavad Gita is practical. If it wasn't practical, we would question what is its use. Is it just so much theory, so many words? Is it so much text torturing, so much intellectual gymnastics? Is it something that we can study in an academic way and pick the linguistics apart? No, it starts off with a practical story of somebody suffering. And the suffering is so dramatized, so astute, so acute, it's equivalent to a nervous breakdown. As mentioned previously before, Arjun, he cannot hold his bow. He cannot string his bow. He is shaking, all the symptoms of a nervous breakdown. He wants to get away from the situation. And then, is it something remote that happened some 5,000 years ago? Or do we also find ourselves in moments where we find a tremor in life? Life is not easy. We are struggling to make things, put things on an even keel, and then suddenly something in life hits us and knocks us. And what is our behavior? Behavior really is remembrance and reaction. We remember unconsciously how we should react, and then we react, and that essentially becomes behavior. So it's the unconscious level, that fundamental layer, that ultimately has to be psychologically reformed. A person facing this appearance, as is laid out here, how will they manage it unless they're able to see something more than what appears? And how can they relate to it beyond a small, limited circle of experience, where the most predominant thing is their own individuality. Faced with several strategies, you can fight, or you can run away, or you can yield. But one more thing is there, and that is love. But first of all, you have to put things into perspective. The proverbial, let's count to 10. Let's not make any hasty decisions. Let us stand back. Psychologists tell us that the highest moment of our creativity is when a person has the ability to work out a problem, think about it, then leave it. Do some mundane task, sweep the floor, do some vacuuming, some household chores, something that doesn't require much thought. And the unconscious mind is working away at it. And even when we sleep, very often there's a variety of dreams called problem-solving dreams. A problem gets solved. Many, many inspirations have come from people who struggled over a problem, looked at it from this angle, that angle, above, below, every kind of variety, then said, let me fall asleep. You see that phrase, let's sleep on it. Let me sleep on it. And then all of a sudden, some solution comes in a dream. Many famous examples are there. The golfer, Jack Nicholson, he learned how to correct his swing in a dream. It's said that Thomas and Edison had the inspiration of the light bulb in a dream. This is some entity working away, saying, you give me a problem, now please, don't interfere with me, let me be to my own devices and work this out for myself. And then come to you, wake you up in the morning and say, my dear child, I have this solution. This is what we call the divine lover that religion calls God. Some entity within that, whether we know it, whether we don't, digests our food, gives us pocket money for thinking, mostly useless thinking, repairs our cells while we sleep, stays awake while we sleep. What is that light, as the question is asked, see, in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So Janaka is having a conversation with the Yajnavalkya, asks a question. Yajnavalkya must be in a humorous mood. He says, what is that light by which we sit and walk and work and come back and so on, all of that? What is that light? And he answers in an obvious way, it's the sun. Yeah, all right, yes, but at night there's the moon, and then what? Oh, there's a fire, and so it goes on. Then, after everything is gone, stars and so on and so forth, it's, what is it? Sound. Yes, but when there's no sound, that's the light within. But then which light is this? It's that light that illumines all the activities of dreams and stays there poised in a creative position when no dream is there, when no waking events are there. This is the Jyoti, this is the light that stands within you. And so Krishna, from the very start, puts this out. He says, you're grieving for things that you should not be grieving for. The wise grieve neither for the living nor the dead. But why is it that we grieve? Well, because we're not wise. If we were wise, we wouldn't do it. What does that mean? It means we have the capacity to see things, put things in their correct perspective. To understand, I wrote a letter recently. Somebody required they were dying. They still are dying. I don't think they passed away as yet. You see how we cushion this whole idea of death. Passed away, this is the language. So we are cautious and sensitive about the language. Passed away. So I wrote in that letter, I don't know the person, but somebody asked me, this person is dying, won't you write something? So I said something along these lines, that I'm somebody just like yourself. I was born without knowing where I came from, not knowing where I'm going, trying to make some sense of it, and struggling through the vicissitudes of life, the ups and downs. When Swami Purnananda came here, a question was posed, what is really the inner meaning in the Mundaka Upanishad of these two birds on a tree, one perfect, radiant, standing at the top, and the other one at the bottom? And so it always comes to my mind, summer here, where you have blackberries. And the blackberries is you take a chance. One looks very sweet, you put it in your mouth and it's bitter as anything. Another one is sweet as anything. Sweet and bitter fruits of life. This is what we're experiencing. And there's an urge to taste the sweet fruits and avoid the bitter ones. But life is not like that. Life is not all sweetness. Life is a series of ups and downs. And the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is very important because it tells us we learn more from pain than anything else. Pain is our teacher. But we are struggling away from it. We're struggling to get pleasure away from fears. Desires on the one side, fears on the other. And we move like this, a kind of push-pull system. A bit like sailing. Sailing requires tacking. You pull in this direction, you push in this direction, somehow it goes, reacting to the wind. But is it a very good formula to be in reactive mode all the time? Should you not take control at some point and assert yourself? On what basis? On the basis that there's this entity, equivalent to this perfect bird at the top of the tree, that remains still and poised, not involved in these activities, these restless activities. Somebody once said to me, "Oh, I wish I was a bird." Obviously somebody who had a lot of troubles. And a bird looks so free. It sings all the time. It flies here, flies there. If you think a bird is free, you're mistaken. It's always anxious. Its flying is because it wants food. It flies here because it wants food. It flies there because it wants food. And when you want something, it means you haven't got it. What is a desire? A desire is an internal wish to fill some kind of felt hollow inside from the outside. And every time we even recite a prayer, "Lord, give me this," is followed by a bracketed unconscious, unspoken, "I haven't got." I want, I haven't got. +1, -1, not likely to get anything. That's a law, mathematical law. You want an equation. +1, -1 equals out nicely and no advantage given. Equivalent to reversing a car out of your garage and putting it back in. You went nowhere. So what is this faith that is mentioned? It's an assertion that there's some dimension in us that religion calls God. And when we take all our emotions, normally steered toward fear and doubt and temptation, a defense mechanism, and redirect it to somewhere more useful, some internal aspect, some internal dimension, something that is deeper than the outside world, then immediately we get a stability. Having arrived and reached something that is intrinsically stable, then that stability gets permeated everywhere. It penetrates everywhere. It penetrates the psychological, it penetrates the emotional, it penetrates the physical, and it penetrates the physical of the outer world. Not one area is unaffected. This is the power of prayer. Not a request thing. The power of prayer is an assertion based on this unwavering conviction. Lord, you are here. Lord, you are everywhere. And when I come across a so-called problem, I should be free, like taking a phone call. "Oh Lord, it's for you." And leave it. Not my problem. Lord, it's yours. You rule the entire universe. Can you not solve a few things, a few financial issues, domestic issues, psychological issues, emotional issues? You spin the whole galaxies. Can't you do this little thing for me? In the grand scheme of things. But what's the difficulty? The difficulty is emotions are very powerful things. Emotions lead us astray. And so it requires teaching the principles. We have to come down and stabilize ourselves by being a common sense. But common sense is seldom common. By having a good view of things. It's common sense to say this world is transient. It's emotional to say this world is the only thing that exists. It's common sense to say that there is an ultimate datum, a stable thing, stable area, that witnesses changes all around. But it's an emotional thing that carries us away and sweeps us away and makes us reactive. What is behavior? Primarily, if we're not careful, it's emotional, from an emotional basis. And so the first port of call that we have to engage in is we have to engage in some principle, some sound principle. And we have to have a device where the emotions catch up. And so Sri Krishna stabilizes the principle, stabilizes the emotions through the principle of there is a stable entity in you that is neither born, that never dies, that is not bound by time nor space. It is not affected by any material thing, by fire or wind or water or air or any of these things, drying or any of these things, not affected in this way. It's not a material thing. And yet it sits there while all these other things are around it. That principle has to be taught. And so Sri Krishna begins with that principle. Now we think, you see Nivedita will say, Swami Vivekananda, having beautifully summarized everything, each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this from within. And then he goes on, controlling in nature, internal, external, and so on and so forth, and the secondary details. But then the method is there. What is the method? The method is fourfold, to match the four propensities of the mind. This is not a new idea because we find it here in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And we're currently studying the 6th chapter. This is on dhyana yoga, meditation, or Raja Yoga. And so the other yogas are mentioned. First of all, jnana is not put like that, it's put as sankhya. But nevertheless, it's jnana. There's the principles there which require us to exercise our discernment, our discrimination, to sort out what is worth grieving over and what is not. Where do we find a stabilizing influence in our life when there is something that never changes amidst all the changes? Why don't you catch that and see what's that like? And don't do it by running away. Do it by employing your own sadharma, your own talents and skills and abilities, the things that you're designed to do. Thinking, therefore, that this world is a patchwork of skills and talents and abilities, with not everybody the same, no standard skills and talents. You are unique in this regard, in your skills and talents and abilities, and this you have to exercise. Where does spiritual life start then? For the housewife, it starts with housekeeping. For the soldier, it starts from military activity. For the priest, it starts through selfless action and teaching. Through the clerk, it starts with accounting. See? Through the station master in the railway station, his job. Wherever you find yourself, this is your starting position in spiritual life. You don't have to find anything else. This is the very, very environment given to you by a loving God that says, here, my child, here are all your skills and talents and abilities that you yourself assembled with a little momentum from me, we call it evolution, and you are landed here with something that nobody else can do. Because if everybody else could do it, nothing would get done. For this building to take place, we had to have all kinds of talents, quantity surveyor, we had to have painters, decorators, roof specialists, people involved in construction, people involved in planning, people involved in giving money. If everybody were just doing the plumbing, then nothing else would get done. So we require all this multiplicity of talents and abilities assembled nicely for us. And so therefore, that is very important. We don't have to look for anything else. Because so many people say, oh, I'm looking for some kind of spiritual life, and that is why I'm going to India next month. There's one person said, I'm going to Varanasi. They came back. He said, what did you find there? I found noise and and dirt and cattle and all this kind. I thought it was a place I could sit and meditate, very holy place. Did you catch it in the early morning? Did you catch it in the evening? That's where you'll find it. But it is a holy place. But don't expect it to be quiet. Because life is life. And we still have to remain stable, be it in the midst of Grafton Street, or be it in Glendalough or something like that. So this stability is a psychological stability that is based on a profound spiritual principle. That spiritual principle is taught first. Karma Yoga is taught next. And then, of course, what happens, is it all just work? No. Certain time you have the opportunity, you make the time, you have the opportunity to take a deep inward journey. And what's the merit of that? So this chapter is like that. Now there are certain criteria that are involved in this. What are the various criteria? So we pick up this, and there's a big gap because we stopped our study before Christmas. So looking, where did we pick up? Oh, I see 18th of December was the last time we made a study of this Bhagavad Gita. So let's see what are the various criteria which are there. You're satisfied with this?
Thank you very much.
Yes, yes. Okay, all right. So, first of all, we have to find out in meditation what are the regulations that somebody who is dedicated to concentration, that is a yogi, what do they have to observe in this earthly life? Some preparation is necessary. And so we find here there are some criteria for progress. From the 16th to the 20th stanza is all to do with this subject. Now, we already covered one stanza of this, and we decided that work-life balance was necessary. What we call in modern speak, work-life balance. So it's there, you see. This meditation, what we call yoga in this context, is not possible for him who eats too much or for him who abstains too much from eating. I won't cover this in much detail because we covered it last time. But just to remind you, it's not for him, or Arjun, who sleeps too much or too little. What does it mean? You see, we have to be sattvic, but what does sattva mean? So in the prayer we recited there, we find the mention of gunas a number of times. See, some evolutionary forces in life are there, and they interplay, and it presents to us a universe and also a psychological condition. Because the psychological condition is part of the universe. We can't separate it. Now supposing you feel dull, supposing the mind feels dull, which it does on some occasions, isn't it? Sometimes you think, I'm just not enthusiastic. I think I'll just sit and do whatever it is. Whatever you do, sit on the couch after a hard day's work and just relax. Chances are you might fall asleep. And if you have a mesmerizing sound, you put the television on or something like that, no doubt you'll drift off. And then you'll wake up and, much to everybody's frustration, ask, this film I was supposed to be watching, please tell me all about it. Everybody has to tell you the whole plot again. But you see, this dullness of the mind is where one of these evolutionary forces operates. This is called tamas. Tamas, that is darkness. A kind of ignorance. You make the mind dull, make it blank, encourage it. Don't rescue it from its dullness. And what will happen? You will sleep too much. This says, it's not for those who sleep too much. What about those who sleep too little? Another component is there called rajas. The mind is continuously occupied. The hands are always busy. And so, after working hard in the office, or wherever it is, then you find, I can't sleep. Then you may take some medication or something for insomnia, or see a psychologist. Well, my difficulty is I have insomnia. Do you have something for insomnia? Yes, take a cup of milk or something at night. Even so, but what's the cause of your insomnia? When I lie on my bed, I'm thinking, oh, the office was so bad. I need to do this, I need to do that. Tomorrow I should do this. Tomorrow I never did this, I never did that. Completely restless because rajas is there. And so, you see, Sri Ramakrishna says, if you have so many activities, worldly activities, then it takes you away from spiritual life. But we shouldn't do nothing. So there should be a work-life balance. We have time for everything. And so what is sattva? Sattva is the absence of any thought or action of any ego, any sense of I or identification with a body-mind complex. Any activity that is pure, pure meaning devoid of desire. The Holy Mother was asked about this great state of perfection, and after going through some things, she puts this caveat, but if you're desireless, you can have it now. Just remove all your desires, but how easy is that? We have desires, we think desires are normally for an object, but every desire for an object has a more subtle psychological desire behind it. A desire to be loved, a desire to be noticed, a desire to be successful. All of these things that we mention on the Enneagram, each one of the numbers has a desire behind it that is a keystone to the personality. The personality is centered around, like concentric circles, centered around a core of behavior which says, I am this, I want that. I want to be appreciated. I want to be fulfilled. Now that has a value, there's no doubt, because it forces us to do some activity. When we say rajas, we're not saying rajas is not useful. It is highly useful. Tamas is highly useful. But you need to have a balance, and if you want to be a yogi, what he's saying is, not too much, not too little. This is Buddha's middle way. He started out doing all kinds of extortionist things, starving himself to death. It was seen as a crime to take food and so on, tremendous ascetic practices, and he didn't achieve anything. But you see, if we think that spirituality is a question of achieving something, we already made our first mistake. When you look at a sunrise or a sunset, it's not that you want to achieve anything. You just admire and drink in its beauty. And people spend a fortune looking for these beautiful occasions where the mind can be calm and at rest. And not only that, but elevated by the scene, create a kind of internal trigger that makes for a joyful internal disposition. That joy is what we're carrying within us. We just don't notice it. We're looking for it outside. We don't look for it inside. And so this purification of the mind is very important. So there was one king, here's a story, one king, he was commissioning a huge hall in his palace, made from marble. It was marvelous. A marvelous building. And he thought, to get the best of this hall, I need to have a competition. So he broadcast, let me have a competition. I get the best artists involved. And they did some interviews and so on. And two most reputable artists he engaged. And he said, not only that, but I give you a prize for this and broadcast your fame everywhere. And so there was tremendous public interest. The two people came into the hall, looked at the hall like this, and one on the right-hand side started setting up a scaffolding. So far, so good. The other man also set up a scaffolding. So far, so good. So far, no one is winning. The one on the right-hand side brings out his plan. Michelangelo, when he painted the Sistine Chapel, it's not that he painted it freehand. He had it all laid out on, must have been sheets of paper, and did what is called poncing. That is putting small dots, small holes on the outlines. And then you put charcoal. So when you take it off, the outline of the figure is there. And then all you have to do is paint it in. And probably he didn't paint it himself. Much as we like to see him on his back with paint pouring on his face and all that, his students probably did all that, all the hard work. He probably did some of it, But once you have the figure, you're like, it's now, once you've traced it out, then if you're skilled as a student, and if you are taught by Michelangelo, you'll know how to blend the colors and put them in nicely and so on. He's done all the hard work. So this man started tracing it out and painting and so on, blending the colors and all the rest of it. The other man had a curious style. No paints were in evidence whatsoever. A small trowel is all he had. He started polishing, working away at the wall, working away at the wall, working away at the wall. After they both finished, they both took the scaffolding away, and the king came in to judge. And he looked on the right-hand side and saw the beautiful figures, cherubims and seraphims and harps and people in different poses and flowers and ferns and birds and animals, and he was astonished. And a huge clap went up. But the other man was more clever. He polished the surface to such an extent it reflected the other man's work. The king gave him the prize because there was an extra bonus. Not only could he see the scene that was painted, but he saw his own image as well. What is spiritual life? Just doing this polishing, engaging this quality of sutta, purifying the mind by whatever means is necessary. And we lay out 4 principal means, and integrated together, they produce a work-life balance. So it's not possible if you eat too much or if you eat too little. And we covered this a little bit last time we met. But even eating, sleeping, these all employ one or the other of these 3 gunas. Your food becomes sattvic if it is prepared. Food becomes pure if it's prepared in a pure way by a person who delights in doing it in a selfless way. In a restaurant, I'm not sure. As long as it looks nice, it doesn't matter who sneezed on it. You just put it somewhere and put it out, and you pay a fortune for it. But somebody who prepares it with love. And then you see, before every meal, see how we say Brahmapanam and all that. We insert God into it, insert God into the ingredients. We see God present there, see God present in the offering, see it as an offering, see it as an offering to the digestive fire. See the offering in the hand, just as if we were doing a havan. And that itself makes for pure food. So all food really should be sacramental food. And when eaten, should be eaten with that mindfulness, that awareness. And sometimes we just eat mindlessly. The habit today is to eat and be mesmerized, not be aware of what you're eating because you're watching the television or something of that nature. So you're seeing that. So a nice Agatha Christie murder there and eating the food at the same time. So it's very interesting. Now it goes on like this. And Sri Ramakrishna has this to say, eat sumptuously in the daytime, he says, but let your food at night be sparse and easily digestible. A sadhaka, that is a spiritual practitioner, ought to help himself to that food only which is not heating to the body and exciting the mind. Heating to the body means that when we overload the digestive system, either by ingredients or by just content, just quantity, then we feel that we are full, and we feel all the blood then, it has to go toward that because heat is required for metabolism. And it's taken from all extremities of the body and heated there within. It makes it difficult. Now, if we think the Lord himself is digesting this food, out of love of God, won't we make it digestible for her? Lord, let me make it easy for you. You have to digest all of this. Let me be aware of that. Let me be kind to you. Let me not feed something which is cold and you have to all heat it up inside. Let me try and put the right temperature in. But all of these, if you do these, you'll find health benefits too. Don't douse the fire with cold stuff, cold water and ice cream and all the rest of it. Because if you have a loving attitude toward God, I know it's delicious and so on, that's fine. But look at that aspect of devotion. The Lord himself has to digest this food. So, what are these things, these factors that conduce to yoga? These are delineated. Yukta hara viharasya yukta chetasya karmaso yukta swapna vabhutasya yoga bhavati dukkaha. So, what does that mean? For him who is moderate in eating and recreation, he doesn't say don't have fun. We all require recreation. There's a reason why we were brought up with a long childhood. that has stuck with us. There's a reason why you think it's delightful once a year to go to the seaside resort and get burnt to a cinder. There's a reason why. There's a reason for that. Because we probably grew up in the shores of Africa by the water and had a long childhood, a long period of education, play, fun. There's an internal joy in us. Why? Our nature is ananda. Our nature is bliss. And so, eating and recreation, temperate in his actions, regulated in sleep and wakefulness, not too much sleep, not too little sleep. Yoga becomes the destroyer of pain. What is one of our human aims in life? Remember? You see what is desire doing? It's moving away from pain. This area of push and pull toward pleasure and pain. Sukha dukkha. Pleasure, what is pleasurable, and away from what is painful. That's our strategy, and we don't get anywhere. +1, -1. And the hollows we've desperately tried to fill and elevate the mind towards something that is more pleasing. So, destroy of pain is a very useful phrase. Dukkha, and various places in the Upanishads we find the phrase na shoshati. That is, what is that whereby we can avoid grieving or avoid painfulness? Something like that. The other side of it is, does the human drive toward and struggle toward the highest pleasure, the highest perfection, the highest area of happiness? As I often say, I never met anybody who sat down and said, my goal is to be unhappy. Everybody wants to be happy. So what makes us happy? This is a practical dimension. It's not just philosophy. It's not just dry stuff. There's a practical thing. What is there that destroys my pain? Now, if we have some kind of regulation in life, it's not only useful, but Swami Vivekananda makes a few comments on this. He's talking about motion. He's saying there are various other motions in the universe. What is the difference between them and electricity? Supposing this table moves, that the molecules which compose this table are moving in different directions. If they are all made to move in the same direction, it will be electricity. If all the electrons move in one direction, this is what we call electricity. Electric motion is when the molecules all move in the same direction, and if all the air molecules in a room are made to move in the same direction, it will make a gigantic battery of electricity of the room. He says another point from physiology, we must remember that the center which regulates the respiratory system, the breathing system, has a sort of controlling action over the system of nerve currents. He's talking of this in the context of prana, and more specifically psychic prana. This chapter is from psychic prana. And so when you say regulation, the hint is this. You compare it to Patanjali Yoga Sutras. This is the aspect which Patanjali puts in his Ashtanga Yoga as pranayama. That is control of energy. We can only do it by regulation. There's every reason. You can see how we put up a notice for daily routine. There's a reason why in monasteries and workplaces things happen exactly the same time. Eating happens at the same time, as much as possible. Meditation at the same time. When I take you down to Glenstone Abbey, you see what we have. We have this liturgy 5 times a day. And when I was talking about the meditation workshop there, I was talking about these opportunities during the day for a pause. Not necessarily for anything in depth, because it's not practical. You go to work, you can't afford to pause for 8 hours. Nobody will accept that, or they'll pay you a salary. But you can certainly pause for a few moments, 1 or 2 minutes during the day. a sense of wonder, adoration, and thankfulness just for that period of time. Even for activities, you can do it before an activity, you can do it after activity, and you can keep an awareness during the activity. There's a reason why Muslims pray 5 times a day, exactly the same, all over the world. There's a reason why Christians have these 7 pauses throughout their liturgy. And as I say, when you go to Glenstone Abbey, you'll see these programs. It's part of our retreat to get you to understand some regularity is necessary. Supposing you're a student and want to pass an exam, you ask, when did you study? Well, when I feel like it. Sunday I did a few hours. And then Monday, but then Tuesday I did a full day. But Wednesday we went with my friends and so on. The likelihood of that person passing the exam, what do you think? So to do something erratic, to take up spiritual practice in an erratic way, will not really work. There has to be some regularity. So this is stressed here, regularity. And the scientific way of explaining it is put there by Swami Vivekananda. Electricity is electrons all moving in a line in a straight direction. Imagine an army all scattered all over the place and not moving in the same direction. So we're conquering the senses and conquering the mind. There's a conquest of the mind. Control of the mind is really what dhyana yoga is. The mind is the queen bee. Where the mind goes, all the senses go with it. So then he says, Yada viniyatam chittam atmani eva patishtate nispraha sarvakamebhyo yukta itya uchate tadha. When the disciplined mind rests in the self alone, for something to rest, we take again the idea of a bird. For a bird to rest in a nest, they have to alight on a branch first. The attention has to alight on the subject, the self, what religion calls God, and then learn to rest there. So what does it need? How do we make the mind or the attention alight on this? There has to be a strong intention, a strong resolve, a strong sankalpa. Resolve and intention has to be unshakable. And that is why Swami Vivekananda, in his recommendations on this very subject, one of the things he says is, say to yourself, I'm strong as adamant. Sitting there, unshakable, nothing will move me. In other words, it's another way of saying, I resolve to sit here. So, in the disciplined mind, how do you make the disciplined mind? How do you make mind rest? It has to be disciplined. And previously he mentioned regularity. So some discipline must be there. Now, people don't like the word discipline because it seems to denote some negative thing. So maybe we shouldn't use that term, discipline. Maybe we should use the term, directing the mind toward a delightful result. Let's take, for example, a hard task. Supposing we want to climb Mount Everest. It requires some discipline. But people do it. Why do people do it? People do the most outlandish things, the things that are very, very tough and hard, and they find great delight in it. People have an adventurous spirit. But there's the key. Maybe a necessary attitude has to be an attitude of sportsmanship, an attitude of adventure. You see how Ramakrishna, we used this mind as a laboratory. We were talking the other day, we were talking about the presence of Dakshinaswara and how it was explained, how Swami Ranganathananda labeled it as a kind of laboratory area where experimentation was done in various ways. He delighted in that. That was his, more than his hobby, it was his life obsession. Similarly, when somebody says, I want to climb Mount Everest, or I want to lose some pounds, or there's a lady I know who's about my age. I take her as something like a heroine. And she runs every marathon she can think of in Dublin. 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, and she wins all the time in her category. She's very careful about her diet. She's a good baker. She makes cakes for everybody and gives them diabetes and all that, and she herself runs. And what a wonderful, but imagine the determination, the discipline, the, what do you call it, the, what's the Spanish,
Ophelia?
Huh?
Sorry?
Yes?
No.
The Spanish pilgrimage to St. James, what is it called?
Camino.
The Camino, that's it. Camino. She's done it something like 5 times from different directions. 1,000 kilometers she goes off. And she does it in a traditional way. She doesn't book in advance to book a place. And she takes it in a spiritual way. She takes it as a pilgrimage. And she loves it. She can't wait for the next one. Look at the hardship, but she doesn't take it as a hardship. She doesn't feel it like that. She feels the adventure of it. And has a devoutness about it, a delight about it, walking a mile with God. If it's delightful to walk a mile with God, then to walk 1,000 miles with God, how beautiful that is. So it requires some discipline. It requires the idea of the mind means attention. When the attention goes off in a certain direction, it requires us to call it back, like taking a dog for a walk. The dog, if you let it off the leash, it'll run here and there and smell this and smell that. Let it run for a while. Let it have its freedom. But know who's in charge. Call it back. Put it on the leash and say, all right, you had your fun here. Come on, this way. Why do you let it run in the first place? Because anything short of that will be repression. There are 2 ways to train a horse or a dog. You can beat it or you can coax it. Much better to coax the mind. See how many hymns are composed. Oh my mind, in monoccello. Oh my mind, why do you roam about in this foreign land? Why don't you go on a journey, a pilgrimage journey, with all the virtues as your friends? And there'll be robbers there, there's no doubt. But be as long as you know that, be aware. But take it as an adventure. So the mind, the disciplined mind, rests where? In the self alone, in the Atma alone, in the divine alone, in the infinite invisible, in the area of glory, which religion calls the innermost God, the inner light, that entity that remains while everything else moves, that entity that radiates purity and consciousness and bliss, that area that lends its life to all the external things by its very presence. In the self alone, no deviation. See what religion says. Every religion that declares God is love, thou shalt love the Lord of thy God. With what quantity? With all your heart. No reservation kept. With all your heart, all your mind, all your soul. That's our ideal. So it's psychologically, we understand, the scattered mind is there. We have to grasp it and make it ekagra. Make it one-pointed. Gather all the forces together. Now if you follow this, you'll see it's the same pattern as Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Because we just discussed pranayama, whether we knew it or not. And now, pratyahara and dharana. All of this is described prior to dhyana meditation. Free from desire for objects. Then is one said to be established in yoga. Established means unwavering. When you establish yourself in a house, you don't move from there. You're now comfortable there. You're no longer looking for a place to stay, a place to live. Many people in Dublin are looking for a place to live. But once they're established, then there's an element of tremendous security. This is more than security. This is the total place of unwavering conviction that we mentioned here in the letter to Hebrews. This is our home. We don't have to look for another home. So there's a certain establishment. You'll see on buildings, established in 1800 and something. Something that is solid. Sri Ramakrishna has this to say, and then we leave it off. The mustard that gets scattered from a torn bag cannot easily be gathered again. Likewise, the mind dissipated in worldly things does not come under easy control. So let's not think it's easy. Possession of the mind in its entirety is yoga, where you are the master of the mind. And the mind is now no longer something that goes sniffing like a dog here and there. It's now completely controlled and directed. The one-pointed mind is then next defined, and we'll just dip into a little bit and pick it up next week. So the expression really is like this: Dipaha, like a lamp, placed in a windless place. Nivedita House, as a lamp in a windless place, does not wave or flicker. He reminds us as the Katha Upanishad, whose consciousness is unflickering. This is the simile used for the disciplined mind of a yogi practicing concentration on the self. Even just thinking about it. You see there's a lamp there, artificial lamp. We decided we'll use it instead of camphor because camphor makes a mess. And it's very interesting. As you wave it, the song waves with it. So it serves a dual purpose. In any event, but you see it's flickering all the time. And that can be an object of meditation itself. In contrast to this flickering, what is this entity that doesn't flicker, doesn't move, is ever steady, pure, full, and free? So we leave it there. Chapter 6, Bhagavad Gita, Dhyana Yoga. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.